Welcome back to my channel, DebtFree CF. In this video I'm going to do the end of the month wrap up for my January monthly budget. You may have seen the January bi-weekly budget plan already posted in terms of the wrap up. I did that a couple days early because I didn't anticipate making many more purchases or needing to get groceries or anything like that, and it does take a little bit longer to go through the breakdown by paycheck, and I wanted to have them spaced out a little bit. So this is for the monthly budget. So I've got the months labeled at the top. I'm doing just kind of a estimate of numbers where some of the numbers are exact, some of the numbers are rounded a little bit, and that's mostly just to keep consistent with the idea of what is going on in the budget, but not necessarily that the exact numbers are really all that pertinent to you watching. So I do have the total amounts of income and what I've gotten for rent from my roommate, because I pay the rent check, and then all of the utilities my roommate pays. So we do a calculation for what the difference is. I've got a number of different purchases for groceries. It's quite an array. So I'm going to go ahead and take this set of numbers that I've got just kind of noted in the bottom for ease of the fact that I'm doing this large formulaic calculation. I'm just going to copy that and move it into the box where it belongs. So this is going to be pasted in, and I need to paste that in starting after the 13. There we go. So when I hit enter, because I had the equal sign at the beginning, I get an exact number of how much was spent on food. This is definitely the highest that we've spent in, if not a couple of months, maybe even in the entire year. In 2017, I mean, because we had a couple that were friends that we were hosting for a number of days because their apartment flooded, and we were, making a little bit more special meals and just kind of spending a little bit more because we had more people eating, but they were pitching in too, so it's just a little bit higher, and that's totally fine. I did spend $25.35 on gas, so I'll put that in. The other bills are all consistent. Didn't change much except for the pets. If you watch the other video, some of this is going to be repetitive, but I was a couple days off, almost 2 weeks off on my calculation of how long the new cat food would last, and so I needed to order that in January instead of in February, which is what I had planned to do. So this amount in here, I'm actually going to kind of redo this. The dog did not get his nails done, and the $96 did go in, but that's going to be over in the sinking fund in the H column. So that's already preserved. So I'm actually going to replace this number with that 310. And then that's going to adjust how much we're each accountable for. And then for next month to reconcile, I'll just look at what the difference is from my roommate's share to balance that out. So what that means in this sinking funds section is that I need to actually put in the 310 as a negative amount in the sinking fund so that we have a remaining balance of the sinking fund. We're both putting in about $45 a month or so, and that's supposed to cover not only the monthly food expenses, but then build over time towards November when all of the animals need vaccinations and the dog needs licensing. So in this plus minus category, I'm going to go ahead and also subtract the 310. Oops. And I need to preserve these in parentheses just to make sure that math is done correctly. So now it shows that there's a negative amount, which is okay because there was some buffer in the account that it came out of, and then that's also because I didn't get the full amount of the half that my roommate would have paid towards the half of the 310. So this will become positive in just a few days. And then other thing was I did use that full $80 of various miscellaneous spending. At the beginning of the month, was visiting some friends, went out for dinner, just kind of small purchases that I didn't need to itemize, and then I did already send the $500 to my retirement account. So a little bit of a negative amount here. Part of that is because there was money in the account already, and we overspent in the grocery category for budgeting, and we overspent in the pet category for what was budgeted. But both of those are actually already being reconciled because I'm filming this basically the last day of the month, and the arrangement that I have with my partner and roommate is that the transfer of funds that are going to be put towards rent on the 1st have to kind of be settled a few days in advance. So that's kind of already covered. And then I'm going to say that this amount in my savings is actually closer to $9,100. And that's because of the different accounts for building savings and then day-to-day expenses are situated. Let's see what else. The amount that I've saved up for Korea, part of that, actually this is actually, yeah, $9,100. The amount that I've saved for Korea is close to $832. Part of that was moving some things from a different account where it was just kind of sitting there. I didn't use it for anything. I don't have a debit card attached to it. I just have a checking account, and I kind of feed it with tax refunds and stuff. I mean, little things like just to keep the account active, which taxes are totally coming up, so that's going to have some more in it. But that means over here in Korea, I'm going to put $832. And then I need to recalculate this one. I don't want it subtracting the food one, which is L14, because that one's going to be constantly changing. So I've got those ones. And then because of how I reallocated some of what's in the Korea fund, this proper 6 months expenses is really $7,600. And the pet is negative right now, but that'll be fixed in the next video on February's budget, because I'll have the transfer from the roommate amount. This is really just kind of a suggested medical amount for the year, and then the $500 for the Roth has already actually been set. So I can say that I don't need the Roth one in there, which makes me pretty close to my goal. And since these are flexible because they're long-term sinking funds, they don't need to be exact. So for example, I could say, well, I really have $200 for the medical, and I really have like, $500 for the car fund, or whatever, in this case like $458 to make it as close to whatever. So, that's kind of flexible. So that's why I don't always update these sinking funds all the time. I use it more as a guide of what I have exactly allocated. Upcoming trip to Korea is more likely to happen than a problem with the car. And even if there was a problem with the car, I could use, part of my actual emergency fund to go towards the car. The car replacement fund is to have something a little bit more earmarked that if I was living off of my emergency savings for any reason, like a job change or job loss or moving or whatever, and something went wrong with the car, then I'd also have money for the car. So that's kind of where those lie. So that's kind of the wrap up of the month. Alright, so I actually figured out what the problem was with the 900. For some reason, the box was red, which was indicating to me that I thought it was in the negative, but it wasn't in the negative because the income is higher than the expenses, which means that this 912 just had the wrong conditional formatting. So I'm going to show you what I set up under the conditional formatting, just kind of as a refresher. It's also in the video about how to do the formatting for Google Sheets if you want to check that out. But you go up to the format option on the top menu and you click on conditional formatting, and it's cut off a little bit. Let me see if I can adjust. So I've got that if the box is greater than or equal to -1, 1 cent, it's greater than or equal to 1 cent, it's going to be green. If it's going to be, oops, I don't want to add another rule. If it's going to be -1 cent or greater in the negative direction, so less than in value, then it's going to be red. And then if it is exactly 0, it will be purple. So what that looks like, let me close that. What that looks like is if I put the 912 and 23 cents into savings, it's going to need a calculation here of including that D20 cell, and then that's going to change the numbers and bring that to 0. So I figured that out just for a second and wanted to add that here. Anyway, you'll see a February budget coming up real soon. Thanks for watching.